Well, welcome to today's Lunch and Learn. We are going to be going over Book Creator, which is an online application for the Chromebooks. However, if you're using this on iPads, it is a pay-for app. So everything that I'm going to do, I'm going to show you the free version that's available for the Chromebooks and or PC. I'm using a PC, so it works the same on both of those. So I'm going to go ahead and start my screen share. I have 3 different accounts set up so you can see this as creating your accounts because I wasn't sure if you had your accounts created. I have my account already created with some books in there and so forth. And then I also have a student account so you guys can see how it works as a student. So let me start my screen here. We're going to switch through all of these. Move you guys out of the way. Okay, so how this works, and I would suggest setting it up with your Google accounts. That is typically the easiest. So if you go to app.bookcreator.com, that is going to take you to the sign-in screen. So again, it's app.bookcreator.com, or if you just Google Book Creator, it's the first result. It will pop up to the sign-in screen. So I'll give you guys a second to get there. So by default, when it starts at Book Creator, it is going to start with the student sign-in. So you're going to see here, it has 2 different tabs. So we're going to talk about this later because not all of our students have Google accounts. Some of our littles don't have them at their grade level. So you also have the ability to create QR codes for your students and let them sign in that way if they don't have Google accounts. Notice also here, if your district is using Clever, students can log in through Clever as well. So those are options for students, but we want to make sure that we're signing in as a teacher because the student accounts are very limited of what they can do. So click on the tab that says sign in with your teacher sign in, and I would suggest signing in with your Google account. If you are not already signed in with your Google account, it will make you go through that login process with your username and password. And I'm going to create mine for this account as well, and then I'll switch over. Okay, so it's confirming I am a teacher. Okay, so you're going to have to go through all these little things. I'm an other. So when you're naming your library, so let me mention this. So with the free version, you get a class library that can be shared with your students. This is also where your students can create their books and you get access to them. You also get what is called a private library. So a private library is just for you. These books are yours and yours only, unless you want to publish them for your students to be able to see on like Google Classroom. However, in your private library, students cannot access them. Okay. So we're just going to call this we'll just call it tech, and we're going to start making some books. And I'm just going to say we're just going to do that later. So you're going to see here my library that was just created called tech. This is everyone. So this is the class library. This is the one that the students will eventually be able to access, and the students will actually be able to create their books in. You can only have 40 books in a library in the free version, but you can have as many students in there as you want. So you might combine books and then start moving them out as kids are creating things and so forth. So again, you get a public or shared library that can have 40 books in it. as many students as you want. You also get a private library that is set up for just you. And again, up to 40 books. So if I click on this little toggle right here, it's going to open up my library. And then the X, which I don't think they should call it an X, because if you click the X, it closes your dashboard and takes you back into your last library that you looked at. So I'm going to click on those three little lines again. Takes me back into my library. So you can see I have one that is private. So that's my library. And then the public one, or the one that you're going to share with your students. Okay. And you can see the little different icons on them as well. And then of course, if you want to join any, those would be down here. Okay. So I'm going to switch screens for a second because I have some libraries already set up so you guys can see these. So this is my library. So I don't have a ton of things in here. I don't use this all the time, but I do think it's a great tool, especially for the beginning of your activities, gathering student information, all about me pages, things like that, because you can combine books together, which is a nice feature. So each student can create their own page or a couple pages, and then you can pull all the pages together and make it a class book. Okay. So if by some chance you wanted to get rid of the library that you had, you can archive and then create new. But if you try to create new right now, it's going to tell you that you have the free plan, you would have to upgrade. So even though it's there, it is not available for you. So these are the two that you can have. So with the free version, you get up to 80 books. Now you can also see down here, I have one that is shared with me. So this was a presenter that I saw at multiple conferences, actually. So the last time I saw her was at the OETC conference, which was done virtually. But this is her shared library. You can see there's 218 authors. So we would call those students. There's 218 students in there that have published books in her library. But notice there's only 19 of 40 books. So the author can be in, you can have multiple authors for one book because you can combine them. And like I said, this is great for beginning of the year activities, like an All About Me or my summer plans, or, something like that, that the students, everything's going to go together, or the year end. So to kind of combine stuff that the students have learned from the beginning of the year to the end of the year, and you're going to add it all together, or like a class yearbook, something like that. So let's look at creating a book. So I am just going to go into my private library right now. So I'm not going to go into the shared one yet. We'll get into that. We're going to work in this private library so we can get comfortable with it. We see things, and not anybody else, nobody else is going to be able to see it. Before we go into my books or my private library, you're going to notice a couple tabs across the top. So I did share with you the one handout that I have, and this was from Ellen, the one that I saw during multiple conferences. Her website is listed at the bottom. But this just has all the tools, what they look like. So you're comfortable or familiar with these shapes as you see them throughout the app. So other resources are here in Learn. So I didn't create anything specific for this, because if I'm working on something, I can click on the Learn tab and it takes me through everything. So if I'm like, oh, she talked about sharing students' books, here it is. This tells you how to share it, bring them all together. Sorry, that's combining. But sharing is publishing, so you can get them out. But all that information is right here. Here's the combining books. So if you need help, come here. The information is going to be listed here. Discover. These are books that people have made that have made public so that you can use them with your students. So maybe you're talking about weather with your students. You can publish or put this on Google Classroom. It's a published book, so you can't edit it. You cannot copy it, but you can read it. So if I click on that, it's going to allow me to read it, and it's going to open it up in what they call the reading panel, because you won't see all of the formatting features and things like that. And then I can scroll through my pages. So you'll see here, and we'll talk about these. These are narration buttons. So you can actually narrate a page or talk into a page, and this is page by page. Then you also have the ability for it to read the entire book to the student. So if you're posting this on Google Classroom, so share to Classroom, the student can click on the read to me and it will read it to them. So if you're working in centers and one of the centers is for them to look at several of the books that you have posted, if they're a struggling reader, they can have it read. Okay, so I'm going to go back again. That is my discovery. So those are free to use books that people have created, and you can see that it has it broken down into grade levels, I should say grade bands, and then also into subject areas. So a lot of information in here, as well as some as simple as, hey, how to use Book Creator. Those are in here as well. So those would be more for you versus your students. So I'm going back to my library again. I want to go into my books library so we can start creating. So right now you probably don't have any books in here, but you can see I have several that have been created. So this is one that I borrowed as an example. You can see there's some other ones in here. I started creating one for just some little tech tips. And then you might also see this one that says getting started with Book Creator. I believe that might put that in your shared library, but you should have access to it, and you can always move them from library to library. We'll talk about that. So when we're creating, we're just going to create one from scratch. And then I'm going to show you all the different things. So I'm going to quickly go through this one so you guys can see. Just be aware, every book is always going to have a cover page. So you'll see that front page, it's going to stand alone by itself. And then you can have it so it goes page by page, or it flips like a normal book, so it's side by side. So either one, you can have that, but you're going to work on things page by page. Okay, so you can see up here, it's telling me I have 3 of 4 pages. If you want to preview what it's going to look like, you just hit this little play button at any time and it takes you into the book. And you can see it makes it look like a book. My cover page, and then it flips open and it's side by side. Since I'm in here, I'm going to look at my settings real quick, and I know we don't have a lot created yet, but this is where it's side by side pages. The reason why I point this out is because when you are creating, or if you're thinking about creating a template for students to be able to use, you need to be aware. It defaults to side by side pages like this. So this would be page 2. And then the right side would be page 3. So you don't want to assign kids and have off numbers, because you want their stuff to be together if it's going to be side by side. If you want students just to focus on one page, you can always turn this off at any time. And then you can see it's no longer side by side, it's page by page. Okay. I'm going to go back to my edit. And if you haven't already, we are going to click where it says new book. So you can see in here, you have blank books, you have 2 of each, and we're going to talk about those here in 1 second, but you also have something called templates. These are newer, and what they do is allow you to have kind of the base of some of these things. So you can see there's different themes in here. There's different setups such as newspapers and notebooks and things like that. So it doesn't create the content for you. Well, it does create a little content for you, but it's nothing that you can't erase. You can move stuff around, rearrange how you want, but the theme is going to carry through your book for you. We're going to create a blank book. So there's 2 of each. So you have your normal portrait, you have square, and you have your landscape. Why is there 2 of each? Because one is regular and one is comic. I am going to suggest that if you want something fun and you want those comic themes, to always use the comic. You don't have to use the squares and the um, the comic call outs and things like that. But if you decide to just go with the regular square, you can't add that stuff later. So you can select it and not use it, but you can't add it. Another tip is if you are going to have books that your students are you're going to combine together. So maybe you're going to have them do 2 pages for All About Me, and you want their picture on one side and then some information. You're going to create the template. Everybody's has to be the same size. So this is where you would create the template for them. They would make a copy and then they would type in their information versus them creating their own, because you would hate for one kid to use landscape and then you can't combine them with the rest of them. Okay, so I'm going to use the square comic. And the first thing that's going to come up, of course, is our cover page. So there's a couple things up here at the top. So if I go back to my books, that's going to take me back to my library. My pages, it's going to take me to, like, think of it as like your slide miniatures. If you're working in a slideshow, it's going to show me all of my pages that I have. Every book that you create automatically defaults to 3 pages, your cover page and then the inside 2. Okay, so these would be side to side, even though it's 2 and 3. You can rearrange here as well, and you can't really tell because I don't have anything, but you can see how it's got the arrow, so I can rearrange them. So I'm going to go back. Then over here on the side, we have 2 important buttons. We have our plus, which is our ability to add items. And then we have our I, which is called our inspector. So we're going to start with our I, because right now our inspector is pretty basic. So depending on what is selected on your page is going to depend what the inspector does. Well, right now, there's nothing there for me to select. There's no text, there's no image, there's not anything there. So the only thing the inspector is going to allow me to do is add backgrounds. So and then you can see here, I have all kinds of different backgrounds. These are my comic backgrounds because I picked the square comic. These are ones that I've recently used. And then it's based on categories. And you can see all of these have multiples in them. And I can add additional colors if the color is not there. So maybe you want your school color and it's not showing, you can pick that as well. There's some different papers. So if you're music or math, you can pick those for inside. Now, when you pick this is page by page. So be aware of that. Just because I pick something like this for the cover doesn't mean the rest of my book has to look like that. So also, not only can I put these textures or like paper looking backgrounds, I can also just make a solid color background while I'm working on my individual pages. So at any time, and you can change these at any point in time. Okay, next, so let's start adding our content. So if I click here on the plus, you can see I have 3 different tabs across the top. Because I picked the square comic, it is always going to default to comic. If I just pick the regular square, I would not have this option. I would see media and I would see shapes. That's it. But again, because I picked comic, it defaults to the comic. So these are all the different things that I can add. We're actually going to start with our media first. This is where we can add our text, our images, anything like that. Okay. So we're kind of going to go up, backwards, however you want to say it. We're going to start with our text down at the bottom. Yes, I have a record button. That record button is going to allow me to read the page to my students or say something. Maybe it's not even typed out on the page, but I just want to say, welcome to class, everyone. I could put that recording on there. I'm going to go to my text, and this is it. It's very simple. There's not a whole lot that I can do here. So our class and you can see I have bold, italic, underline. I can put in hyperlinks. So you can hyperlink a document to it, a slideshow, whatever you might need to. You can add that in there as well. Okay. So I can move this around. Okay, so very similar to a Google Slides presentation. I can resize my box as needed. I can rotate if I need as well. Okay, but you'll notice that I can't format yet. So if I highlight it, I can make it bold. I can italicize it, but I want more. I want to change the font size and the color and things like that. So now that is done in the inspector. So because I have this selected, now when I click on the inspector, it allows me to make all those page or changes for the text versus just the page. So this is what we used last time. Now I have a tab that says text. So you can see I can make it larger or smaller. Maybe I want to center it. I still have my bold, italic, underline here. I have my different fonts. Okay, I don't have a ton, but I have enough. Okay, they're going to follow along with some of my themes. So maybe I'll choose this. I can pick a color. So whatever your school color might be. If you want a background, now this background is for the text box. Okay, so you can see it just goes in that text box. It doesn't apply to the entire page. Okay, and then if you needed columns, so if you were doing some type of tables, so you can do a table. So maybe you have the question in the first column, and then the second column is where they're going to type. So you can add those columns in there. If you wanted a drop shadow, so you can see it adds the drop shadow. And then this is, this would be your ordering. So send to front, bring, or send to back, bring to front, those types of things. So just like in a slide presentation, your things can overlap and sometimes you need them in front or behind. Okay. And we're going to talk about this lock when we're working on our second page. Okay. So this is our cover page. We're done. We're going to move on. So once I click on the arrow, it's going to take me to my next page. So again, once I'm here, I'm going to start adding my content. So if I want different panels in my comic strip, you can see all the different types of panels I have. So I can add images in some, I can add text in some. You see there's fun ones that are split, things like that. There's the speech bubbles, there's the thought bubbles, some fun text that you can use. Okay, and it is going to be this color. Okay, so you don't have ton of options when you're working with these. The caption will be in the box and they look just like this, but you can always customize your text using the text tool and some of your formatting. And then you have your stickers. So these are your normal call outs. Okay, and then you can put these and you can put text boxes in front of them and so forth. So let's look at more of our media options. So we added text. Now let's add our pen tool. So the pen tool is fun. This is where we can add a bunch of stuff. So we have our normal pens, our pen, our paintbrush, our crayon, our marker. And then this is the size of the tip. Then there's also something called auto. So I like this. So when you're trying to draw something, I don't know about you, but when I draw, I'm not the best drawer, especially when I'm drawing on the computer. So you can see, I don't know if you figure that out, but I was trying to draw a shoe. And then you can look, it says, do you mean, and look at all the different options it brings up based on my horrible drawing. So then if I'm like, oh, yep, that's what I wanted. I wanted a tennis shoe that looks like this. I click on it and it converts my drawing into a little clip art. So then when I'm done, I can come back here and it's going to update my page. And now once it's here, I can move it around as needed. So any of these you can move, you can resize as needed. Okay. So our pen tool, let's go back into it. If I just want normal pen drawing, I can pick my color. Oops, here's my color. If I want, maybe I want glitter. I'm going to do glitter. I'm going to say welcome. And it's funny, I'm using my mouse and I have a touch screen. It probably would have looked a lot better if I used my touch screen. Then I can erase things. So if I need to erase something, I have my eraser tool to erase. And this works on any of the call outs, things like that, that you make during that episode of the pen tool. Because you'll notice I can't erase stuff that I previously made because that's not during this episode of the pen tool. The bucket is a way to fill your entire screen. So let's see if let's make this a light color. So you can see that it colors everything in. So if you don't want that, you can go back to a white background, but you'll see that it's overlapping stuff because that was during this episode of it. So be careful, but I can start erasing things. So it's a way that you can kind of make things stand out and so forth. Or you can go, I kind of went in reverse order. You can do the background first and then add stuff on top. The other thing is your little emoji. So this allows you, this has all your emojis in it based on your categories. So if I just pick one, it's going to pull it in. I can resize it. Now, again, be aware this is all based on the episode that you're working in. So once I say done, you can see this is all one. Okay, so I can't just move that emoji in a separate place because they are all together during that session of my pen tool. So if I needed to add more or I wanted to add multiple emojis, I'd go back into my pen tool, go back to my emoji, and then add the laughing one. Now, because I did it in separate sessions, now I can move that one and I can move this one separately. Okay. Okay, a few more things in our media. Okay, so that was our pen tool. Now we have our camera. So when you're having your camera, you have two options. You have the ability to take the picture, so you can take a quick snapshot, or you can record. So if you want to show them something, if you're doing a demonstration, you can hold something in your hand, you can record it, they can see it in the book, and then they can read the next page. So you have both of those. They're very simple to use. Just click on it, start to start, and then click on stop to finish. And it'll insert it on the page that you created it on. And then our last is our import, and this is probably the biggest one. I'm going to go to our next page so it's nice and clean. So our import has a lot of options in here. So this is where you're going to get your images. So whether it's clip art, whether they're pictures, whatever it might be. So if I wanted to search, if we're doing something about summer and I wanted to search for kids on a beach. Okay, so I can pick any of these. So maybe this was me shelling on the beach. I can say add, it's going to bring that in. Now, I've noticed that it does use Pixabay, which is great, has tons of images, they're royalty free, so you can use them. However, sometimes the images that you are looking for is not there. Okay, so if I'm looking, for example, earlier I was looking for the Google Classroom icon. Is it that one? Oh, nope, it wasn't that one. It was Google Forms, I think. Yeah, so you can see here, it's not pulling up what I need for Google Forms. So what it does, if it can't find it in Pixabay, then it's going to say, hey, do you want to try a Google search? And we'll see if that's available. So now it's going to go search in Google for the royalty free, and I can pick any of the images that I need from there. Okay, so just be aware that that's there and kind of how that works. So again, these are your images. So next is maps. So this is great if you're doing a topic on like what you did on your summer vacation, or like who traveled the farthest, and they all get to pick their location that they can make a map. So, you know, I'll say I went to the office, woohoo. So Worcester, Ohio. So if I want Worcester, Ohio, I can bring that in. I can move around to where I've been, and then I can say add. And then that brings that image in. I can move it around, and you can see it. You can modify it if you need it to, or you can delete it just like you would a normal image. So very easy to bring in when you're looking at this. If somebody's looking at it, it's going to be a stale, a stagnant picture. So you're not going to be able to modify the map. Okay. So, but when you're working on it, you are able to modify and move it around. So if something's missing, oops, there's my edit. You can move it around as needed. Okay, or shrink or make bigger, or whatever you might need. Okay, let's look at more. So back in our import, we can also import files. So you might have an image such as, I have my Bitmojis. You might want to bring one of those in. You might have a PDF that you want to bring in. So you have something that was created, it's saved as a PDF. You can bring that in. So whatever you might have, you can bring that in here. Okay. So if you want to connect your drive, you can pull documents from your drive. So maybe you have a daily sheet that tells the kids what they need to do, and it has the directions. So you can put that in the book, you know, on the beginning of the page or whatever it might be. So the kids have that direct link to it. The embed, this is nice as well. A lot of people now are using more and more different types of apps online. For example, Flipgrid, you can record videos or shorts in Flipgrid. So you can get those videos and you can bring them in. You can bring in YouTube videos. I have an example of an Adobe Spark video that I brought in. So as long as you can get the embed code, it will allow you to bring those things in. So let's look at this. So how would I do that? So I'm just going to open up a new tab, and I'm going to say, book creator. So I want a video on how to use Book Creator. So I want to make sure it's on YouTube. So I'm going to go through, watch it, make sure it's one that I want. Okay. So I'm like, oh, yep, that's perfect. So then what I want to do is I want to go to share. Once I am in share, there is the tab or the button that says embed. You want to find that embed code. So I'm going to click on that. It's going to pull up the embed code, which you can sit here and highlight to copy and paste it, or you can just click on copy and it's going to copy everything in there. Then what I would do in my book creator is when I add my import my media, go to my embed code, I'm going to paste that iframe. So now you can see all that gobbledygook is in here, what size it's going to be. It's from YouTube and so forth. And I'm going to confirm this. Now what it's going to do is bring up my video. I'm going to say add, and it populates it on my page. So that's all the different content that you can add to your pages. So now we're done. We have this. I want to add more pages. How do we do that? Very simple. Here's a plus. Click on it. It adds another page. It will always add the page at the end. So you'll see that I'm on page 4 of 4. So if I want to rearrange my pages because I wanted this to be, let's see, we'll just do text. So this was supposed to be page 1. When I click on my pages button here, you can see it has everything and I can just rearrange this. Just click and drag. Now you'll notice my page 1 is actually page 2 because my page 1 is my cover page. Okay. So very simple to add. I can select multiple pages. Maybe I mess things up and I want to get rid of these 2. I can delete them. I can copy them to other books. Okay. So, and then, oops, well, I'm going to say done. I don't want to select them anymore, but you can see each one of my pages. I also have the ability to do things such as copy it. Oops, copy it. I can copy it to another book. I can move it to another book. Okay, so I can move it. I can move it to the cover page. I can move it to page 3 or 4. And then I can say, hey, this is going to be my cover page. I want to copy this also over to my other book called whatever it might be. Okay. I can insert a new page. So if I want to insert, you can see here now it inserts that page before the one that you are working on. So it's kind of opposite of the other way. So when you click on the plus, it's always going to add it to the end. But if I click insert here, it'll go before the one that I had selected. Okay. And then again, to remove it, I can just hit delete. It confirms and it'll remove that page. So we've worked on it. Things are going great. Now I want to view it. So if I click on my little play button, this is going to show me my book. So here's my cover. It opens up, flips the page, and then there's my end. You do not have a choice with this. This is custom. You cannot make any changes, modify it, add anything to it. Okay, that's part of the free version. You're stuck with that end. So now I want my kids to be able to see this. So there's a few things that I can do here. So I can publish this. Okay, so if I want my students to be able to see this, I want to publish it and make it private so only they can see it. Okay, so actually I'm going to go back to a different book here. So you can see I have my different books. So I want to share this with my class. So I want to make sure that I publish it. Now you'll notice that I have my little, if I'm in my play, I have my little share up here so I can publish it. I can download it as an ebook. I can print it. But I also have those options down here. So you can see the little share. I can publish it, download it, and print. And we'll talk about moving it here in a second. So if I want to publish it online, it's going to say, hey, okay, how are we going to publish this book? What's the title going to be? Who is the author? So you can change that here if you want to. So maybe I want it to say Mrs. Baltics. This is going to my students. And then any description if you want a description for this book. So okay. Who can find this book? So while you're starting off, I would suggest keeping them private. If you make them public, your book can be searched and found by anybody. So if you're not ready for that, keep it private, and then you would share the link with your students. Public, they would be able to search for it, and they can find it online. And Remix, this is new. I have not used this yet. but it allows you to edit copy. It allows other people to get copies of your book once it's published, so they can kind of make it their own. So we're just going to leave this as private. We're going to leave this off, and we're going to publish this. And that's it. Your book has been published. So now we have two options. This is all publishing does. It allows you to create a link. So if you want to post it in Google Classroom, or you can bring it up full screen so you can read it online. So if I click read online, it's going to open up a new tab. It's going to open up my reading window. I'm going to say I'm going to read this, and I would flip through it. Okay. I can go to full screen. So if I have this projected on with a projector on a TV, whatever you might have, you can do that. The read to me is available. If you don't want the side by side, highlighting the words. So all of these are available for the students when they're clicking on it. And then of course, you have the ability to share it to your classroom. Okay. So if I didn't click there, if I clicked copy link, then I would have to go into Google Classroom, and I would create an assignment or a material, whatever it might be. So I'm just going to create a quick material here. Oops, can't spell correctly. Okay. And then I would have to add my link. Oops, wrong button. So add my link. It's thinking slowly. There it goes. And then I would post it. Okay. The other way is if I was looking at my book and I said read online. So this is for me because I'm the creator. I have the share button, and I would be able to share it to my classroom. And it kind of goes through the same concept. So I would pick my class, I would pick what it would be, and then I would name it. Okay, and I'll show you both of those. Okay, so that was created as well. So before we go in, well, actually, let's go in as our students so we can see what this looks like. And then we're going to start talking about collaborating with our students. So here's as a student. And you can see here are my two different postings. So if I click on that and I click to open it, notice it opens it in full screen. Okay, I can have it read to me. I have the option to change the side by side if I want. Okay. Not sure why that's there. But then the student can scroll through. Okay, the student can go to full screen as well. Okay. So that's a way to create a book yourself and share with the students. Now, what happens if you want the students to create books as well? So let's get back here. I'm going to stop publishing this. At any time, you can see any book that's been published. So if you look through, you'll see the only one that's published has the little world up here. So I can just click on that and I can say stop publishing. Now my students no longer have access to it. You can leave it published, not a problem, especially if you want them to read it, multiple times throughout the 9 weeks or the year. Leave it published, but I don't need mine published. Okay, so now I have these books and I want to share them with my class, or I make a template and I want students to fill them in. So for example, I made a template here for my summer journal, and I want them to be able to add their vacation location, what their favorite thing was, and they have to write 5 sentences about it. And then maybe I have them add an image and a map. So they're going to do 2 pages. Here's the tricky part. If you are combining books, when you combine books, it combines everything, including the cover page. So if you're making templates for kids, you typically just want to use the pages that you want them to fill in. You don't want to include your stuff to the template. You will have that for your own book. So what I'm going to do is some of those tools that we learned. So I want to make this a whole separate book. So I'm going to say, I am going to copy it to, when I didn't make my book first. Hold on one second. So I'm going to make my new book, make it square. Now I want to go into this. So now I'm going to say, I want to copy this into my new book. And I can do the same thing here, copy to, and put it into my new book. Okay. So then in that case, then I would remove these because I want this information at the beginning of the book, but I don't want this stuff. So I'm going to delete these. If I want to select multiples, I can select multiples and then I can hit delete. So this is my start of my book, but I want the kids to have this one. Okay. So let's go back and look here. We have one called a new book. So I can call this okay. So I want to share this with my class, and I'm going to have you guys do this as well. So I'm going to give you an invite code. So whether I put this in Google Classroom or I put this up on the board, this is the invite code that I'm going to give to my students so they can see my library and they can work on some of these books. So I'm going to click on that invite code. I'm going to grab this number. You guys can go into, you would go into your main library. So let me go back there a second. You would go into your 3 little lines and then you would join a library. So as a student, it's a little bit different because when they get in and sign in, it says enter a code from your teacher. So it doesn't give them the ability to create a book like it does a teacher, just gives them the ability to join. So I'm going to put that in there and I'm going to say go. So you can see any of them that I did not create only has the play symbol. Any of them that I have created, such as this one, allows me to edit. So it's nice because the students can look at each other's books, but they can't make any changes to them. So this one is my template piece. I want the students to make a copy. And you can see here it says template, make a copy. So a few things when you're working in here, you have your ability to share, but you also have your ability to, well, in teachers' case, the ability to move or the ability to make copies of books. And you can see here also to combine, but we're going to make a copy of this. So you'd have to teach them, click on the little books and make a copy of it. So, and I'm going to put this in my summer library. So here it is. It's now showing that it's a copy and I'm going to put my name here. And you can see it automatically populated my name based on how I was logged into my Google account. But you can see now as I hover over it, I have the ability to edit this, but I don't have the ability to edit this one because Shelley Baltic created it. So it doesn't allow me to. So I'm going to have you guys jump into this class real quick. So again, like I said, click on your 3 little lines. You should see a join a library. And then type in this, and I can put it in here too, if you want to copy and paste it. Type in this invite code. I'll give you guys a second so you guys can get in there. So what I want you to do is see how to make a copy. So click on my book, and then you click on the little book icon and say make a copy. But you'll also notice, and if you try, it doesn't matter. Like I said, I can have whatever in here. I can start deleting things. It doesn't matter. As a student in my, or I should say, as an author in my library, it also allows you to create new books in my library. So this is how a student can create books. They can't create books on their own, but they can create them in your library. So now that I have this created, I'm going to edit this. And I have my added pages here. Oh, I should have cleaned this up. I was going through this fast. Let's go to pages. Select. Okay, so I should have cleaned this up first. So those are the pages. That's fine. So I can start adding things in here, and you can see I put text boxes in here, so the student can just click on it and put and it's going to put that information in there. So then the student can modify as needed. They can do the different things that they want to. So they have all the edit capabilities that you have based on being in your library. Okay. So now that I have a couple of these already created, now I want to combine them. So I want to combine all my student work into one. So I have this here, and this was the beginning of mine. So now what I want to do is combine my books. Okay. And you can see I'm in me, I'm not as the student. I'm going to combine these. So I'm going to say, okay, these are the ones that I want. So I'm going to do this one, then this one, then this one. Okay, and you can see the order that it went in. And then I'm going to say next. And I'm going to create. So it takes a second. It's not done yet. Usually doesn't take this long. Oh, there it goes. Okay, so you can see it just generates a basic cover for you. If I click on it to edit it, I can modify this. I can spice it up. I can do whatever I need to do. But then as I go through it, you're going to see that it's going to combine all those books together. And my spacing was off, so. But it will bring in, you can see it's got the multiple, so it would be one student after the other, and their information is going to be in there. So again, it's a nice way at the beginning of the year, have the kids do 2 pages, keep the cover on there. That's, I deleted the cover on accident. I was getting click happy. Keep the cover on there, because then your next 2 pages will be the side by side. So if you're doing an all about me, so the cover page can, just have their name on it. And then it could go to the all about me information. So now you want to save this for next year. You're like, okay, that was nice, or we're done with this activity. I no longer need the template in here, but I want to use it again next year or for my next class. So then what I'm going to do, because I am limited to 40 books, I want to make sure I stay under my limit. I can click on my little book icon and I can say move, and I can put this into my book library. So you can see now I'm down to 5. And if I click, here is my template. Okay, I think I have everything covered. Did I miss anything? Any questions? And as you're going through, so even if my students have done some of this work, so maybe this one, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to be done with this book. If I click on this, I can delete this from the student. So it deletes it from my library, and it also deletes the access that the student had for it. Oh, I did forget to show you something. So I'm going to delete that. So I have students. I want them to work on this, but they don't have Google accounts. Okay. So I have the ability here. Here's questions about my library itself. I can publish this library if I want. I can allow the students to publish their books. I would not suggest that. Do you want the students to be able to read each other's? Maybe they're working on it. You don't want them to see until everybody's done. But then here's also where the students can edit their own books. Okay. So I have those settings. Everything is set. I want the students, let's see. I want the students in this book, play. And I totally lost it. Where is my print? I lost the QR code. There it is. I'm like, I know it's up here someplace. So if I want to create student logins, okay. So if my students don't have Google accounts, here is where you can create student login codes for them. It will generate a QR code that you can print out, that you can give to the students. You can download, give it to them. You can print them all at once. But then when they sign in, the camera will come up and they'll just put it in front of the camera and they'll log in that way. It gives them ability to join your library only. Okay, so they can join your library, and based on your settings here would be based on what they can do in your library. Okay, so again, I keep thinking it's under the settings, it's under your profile, student logins. Okay, so again, you get 2 libraries. One is private to you only. One is available for students to be able to see and edit and create. You can have up to 40 books per library. So that's 80 books with the free account. Okay. And I'm going to stop there to see if there are any questions. Oh, if I want to get my students to make a copy of a template. So for example, here is my template piece. I put this in my private library. So I want to get it back to my shared library so my students can get to it. So I'm going to move it. So let me move this back into my summer. I'm going to switch my libraries. So once it's in here, the students do not have access to edit it. Okay, so I'm going to switch to my students. When they're in here, let me refresh real quick because it should repopulate it. Anything that I put in here is going to be in here. So here's the template. So notice the student can't edit. It only allows them to play. So they have to click on the little books and make a copy. Oh, I switched it back and forth, but that's how they would do it. They would click on there and then they would copy the book. Okay. So the little book selection, make a copy, and then it will title it copy of and it will put that in here for you. So, I mean, I don't think at any point in time you would have more than 40 students in a classroom if they were all making copies of it, but all of their copies would be in here for you to be able to see.
Okay.
One thing that I did forget to show you guys is when you're making your template, if you're making a template that you don't want kids to modify certain parts of it, such as this, you want them just to be able to type in these areas, you can lock your sections. So maybe you don't want them to delete this, that's the directions. If you right click, it allows you to lock. Or if you go to your inspector, oh, I have to have it selected first, your inspector, you should see the lock on here as well. So then they can't move it until they they can unlock it, but it saves it for you. Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, Shelly, I have a question. This is Leslie.
Mhm.
So when you're copying the books, do the kids have to be done with their pages before you add them all together? Will it continue if they go back in and edit?
Great question. No, they have to be done with it, because what it does is at that point in time, it combines what it has in each of the books, and takes it from that point on. It does not change the original book. So you still have the originals and then the combined book as well. So they do have to be finished.
Okay, thanks.
Students can, once they are in here. Oh, because let me see. I don't know what I did, but students can create their own books too. So if you click at the student, so you can say, hey, you guys create a square comic, and they can create their own, and it'll populate in here for you to be able to see it. And then again, based on your settings, you can say, I want the students to be able to see each other's or not, but you always have the ability to see all books in here and the ability to edit them and delete them if they're inappropriate. Anything else? Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks.